There we go. Okay, good morning, folks. Obviously, Mike Anderson here. Most of you I know, a few not. Hello anyway. Appreciate you making your time available to talk today. I know a lot of us have talked about this in sort of fits and starts along the way, but we're going to spend some time today, about a half an hour, hopefully, talking about the Mutual of Omaha product in New York. And it's, of the four in our portfolio, it's the only one that has the brick and mortar in New York, so it's the one that that we're going to work with here going forward. See if we can, there we go. Okay, so now just a quick recap. One of the primary reasons we were driven to critical illness was these next two graphics. Once upon a time, the long-term care playing field, if you were, was basically like a football field. And over the course of the last 5 to 10 years, things have changed pretty dramatically, and the reality is now we are basically playing over in this corner of the end zone. Much more difficult as a result of price changes and underwriting changes to function within that space. And several years ago, we began taking steps to put together a portfolio of critical illness products that would work for our folks around the country, allow them to make this option available to their clients. And again, for purposes of today's conversation, this product is intended specifically for New York, and I think that's where almost all of you either are domiciled or where it is that you work. Okay, so the other piece of why critical illness is that the need is staggering. Medical advancements, and we'll talk more about that here in a second, combined with longer life expectancy. As you can see, it's about the difference in life expectancy is about 35 years longer than it was, say, 100 years or so ago. Grandma there's turning 100. She's not eligible for critical illness, but hopefully she's had it along the way to, to help her out. Also, some sort of common ground in the area of working with our old ground. Alzheimer's, strokes, heart attacks, and cancer represent more than 70% of the most common long-term care claims out there. Critical illness does work. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but if you go to YouTube and Google search Seth, or not Google, but search for Seth Rogen, the actor, and Alzheimer's, he gave a very, at the same time, serious and lighthearted plea for help in the area of Alzheimer's disease. The statistics that he cites in this appearance before a congressional subcommittee are just amazing. There are 5 million people, I believe he said right now, suffering from Alzheimer's in this country, and they expect that to triple in the next 25 to 30 years. It truly is an epidemic. It's an epidemic that long-term care will be a significant piece of, but there are a lot of costs associated with Alzheimer's. Critical illness can be a gigantic help in that space. We talked about medical advances. More people are surviving critical illness. Down in San Diego, I talked about the idea that what were life insurance claims back in the 90s are now critical illness claims. 5-year survival rate on cancer is significantly upward, and the 1-year survival, as of June of 2009, the 1-year survival rate for males is almost 90%, females 86% on heart transplants. The advances have made it possible for us to live and survive and live, but that does come with consequences. All right. Along the way, expenses are rising because when you survive these kinds of things, you've got to deal with the loss of income, potentially out-of-network treatment or out-of-network doctors, experimental treatments, the transportation and lodging for those types of things, and other day-to-day type stuff like childcare and housekeeping that it's relatively easy to handle when you have an ongoing income, but if your income stops, you still have to deal with those things along the way. Out-of-network is particularly, it's kind of specific to cancer, if you will. A close friend of mine, many of you have met him, David Schaefer, our affinity director. His wife was diagnosed with breast cancer a couple of years ago, and the guy, as a surgeon for her specific location and type, was an out-of-network doctor for them. That was a $15,000 pop to deal with that. $15,000. You also get experimental treatment, and it seems like I'm surrounded by this, but my boss, our general manager here, his brother was dealing with pancreatic cancer that eventually spread to his brain. He went to Europe twice for experimental treatment, not approved in this country. Airfare, hotels, etc., all those things are out-of-pocket costs. You can imagine that a critical illness policy would come in really handy in those situations. The concept of CI insurance was developed about 30-ish years ago by Marius Bernard. This gentleman, his brother, very well-known heart surgeon, Christian Bernard, the two of them were part of a transplant team that performed the first human-to-human heart transplant. And he put this together, not an insurance company in the name of shameless profiteering, and he put it together because he realized that the financial strain created by surviving these types of things was actually impeding his clients' survival moving forward and their ability to recover. Okay, he put something together that afforded the client a tax-free benefit with, upon diagnosis. Okay, and it does make financial independence available when they need it the most. As we've talked about before, the conversation about critical illness at any point in time starts with 4 simple words. Who do you know? Who's been diagnosed with cancer, heart attack, stroke, Alzheimer's? I've done this in rooms of 40 and 50 people, and the great majority of the hands, probably north of 85%, come up when you ask this question. And I know for myself personally, I've been right smack in the middle of it. Okay, obvious thing, who plans to be on that list? When you talk to your clients, and I'll make these slides available, I already sent over some of the other collateral material to Tracy, but I'll make these slides available when we're finished. This is the outline for a very easy to manage 6-question CI meeting. Okay, starts with who do you know? Get some specifics, age, was it expected, and in virtually every case the answer to that is no. All right, and at the end you end up with a very simple question. Would extra cash have helped? I've never heard an answer to that question other than yes or people nodding their heads. And the key thing with this is that when you walk them through this, they're doing all the talking, and the next thing you know, they are leaning in. They're actually engaging themselves in this process by making it clear to themselves that it is all around them and that it is the type of thing that is completely random. It's going to happen, and the likelihood is it's going to happen to them or someone that they know. We talked before about survivability with consequences. You can see a lot of things going up, not much coming down except for the amount of benefit that you get for your premium. More and more this fits in. Okay, and so obvious, how much of a difference would a $10,000, $50,000, or $100,000 critical illness policy have made when the condition is diagnosed for this person? So now, Mutual of Omaha's product. We'll talk about the product specifics here in a second. Underwriting. It's got one big knockout question. We'll take a look at that here in a second. Height and weight are in play. Every application is going to have a prescription drug check, and they are going to do a phone interview with an underwriter. They will use an APS above $100,000 in selected benefit. And depending on underwriter discretion, and there's criteria in the agent guide, which Tracy will make available to you, they're going to utilize the paramed with blood and urine depending on the case specific. So we're going to take a quick second here and take a look at the underwriting guide and this information. Again, this starts, I believe, on page 8 of the field reference guide, and that was part of the material that I made available to Tracy. So now we talked about the big knockout question. So anybody with any of these conditions, okay, they are not eligible for critical illness coverage. And most of these things tie directly to a covered segment of this, okay? It's a little bit different than some of the other things that you've seen us bring into play. Again, it is New York specific, and you will have this list, all right? But if they've had any of these right here, they are not going to be eligible. So now we talked about height and weight. There's your height weight chart there. It's actually 2 pages, and again, you'll have your own copy of this when we finish the finish the call here. That's the second page of the build chart. There's a little bit of occupational stuff. Interview requirements, this is what I talked about before, okay? Anything under 100,000, for sure they're going to do the interview, all right? To get above that, they may go with physical data, which is the paramed, blood and urine, those types of things, okay? You'll notice down here that they state in here that if they can get from the doctor relatively current physical data, blood and urine, then they won't require that. If they've had a physical within the last year, that would give them the opportunity to to get away with not having to make use of that, okay? And then the one piece here that's a little bit different than some of the other things, there are financial criteria. The financial criteria, or guidelines, if you will, state that they can consider a benefit amount that is 3 to 5 times the annual earned income for the individual plus their outstanding mortgage balance. All right, so if you've got somebody, and you probably wouldn't do this anyway, but if you've got somebody that's making $30,000 a year and they don't have a mortgage balance, they're not going to give them a $250,000 critical illness policy. They'll probably give them a $100,000 critical illness policy, but they're not going to make one of the big swing for the fences types of things available. We'll take a quick look here at the application itself. This is the key section that you're going to deal with your clients, which is the underwriting information. Not particularly lengthy, certainly, compared to long-term care. As you can see, you got your primary big question up here. Then the rest of it's basically confirming when the last time they've been to a doctor was, these types of things. Okay, the family history question number 5, it shows up, but they do not have to answer this. It's not. It's actually being phased out everywhere in the newer version of the app, which will come out here in the second quarter of 2014. Will not have it on there, but this is the sum total of the underwriting information right there. You move right into plan information. That's kind of nice compared to 28 and 30-page applications that your clients deal with for long-term care. The other thing that we have available by way of resource is the brochure, and it's interesting, or it's worth noting that right here, there we go, in the brochure is a plan highlight section that really does a good job of outlining what it covers and within that framework how it works, so to speak. Life-threatening cancer, it defines that, defines atherosclerotic heart disease, gives and explains to them exactly what it is that's going to be covered. That, I think, is particularly good, and again, it's a part of what Tracy will make available to you when we finish things up here. So we're going to go back here to this. Okay, so just quick review. The one big knockout, you saw the conditions. All right, height and weight is in play here. They're going to get a drug history check. They're going to do a phone interview, and they have the ability to use the APS if you go above $100,000 benefit. If your clients had a relatively recent physical, that may keep that from having to be done again if they can get access to that information. Benefit structure. Your clients can select from between $10,000 to $250,000. It is a lump sum benefit. Okay, and it literally is in $1,000 or $1,000 increments, so your clients could get 20, 40, 60, whatever it is that you feel as though, or the two of you arrive as being necessary within a couple of couple situations that we'll talk about more here in a second. If they are diagnosed with one condition, because it is a lump sum policy, the policy is then done. If you will, it's guaranteed renewable to, it's actually age 85, that's wrong. The benefits do reduce at age 65. So if your client has $100,000 and they reach the age of 65, that benefit does reduce to 50. That's fairly standard in the critical illness space. And the trailing question is always, do the premiums change? And they do not. The premiums do not go down. The benefit does reduce. Now, I mentioned a couple of situations where, and we'll get to them in a second here, where it would pay less than the lump sum. It does pay the lump sum for the conditions noted here. Okay. major organ transplant, once they register with UNOS, which is the organ sharing registry, and paralysis, for some reason, that's actually supposed to not be, or be shown, but be shown down there with its own bullet. Excuse me. And then the partial benefits, if you will, the 25% benefits are available for what they call cancer in situ, which is localized cancer where they're able to go in and just get it right out. It's not the same as skin cancer, as you'll see down below, okay? And then also when you have coronary atherosclerotic heart disease, that also pays a 25% benefit. Now the good part about that, if you will, is that if you're diagnosed with cancer in situ and you get $25,000 from your $100,000 benefit pool, the remaining 75 is still there for you and it is still in play. If you are diagnosed with another condition, you would be able to collect the balance. The same thing applies with the heart disease situation. You'd be able to, you collect the $25,000 there, and then the balance is still available to be collected or to be available in the event of another diagnosis. Flat one-time benefit of $250 for a diagnosis of skin cancer. Okay. Again, noted 25% of the benefit amount is paid. The policy still continues at a 75% amount. And that, because it's not super complicated, that pretty much handles that. Give me a second here. I'm going to unmute everybody. If you have not keyed in your 2-digit audio PIN code, please do so now so that we can get everybody unmuted here. I noticed, looks like Sandra, we don't have an audio PIN code from you. I knew we would from Dana D because she's got a lot of questions she wants to talk about. All right, so I think we have pretty much everybody unmuted, so including Mr. Houlihan on the golf course. So let's fire away with questions out there, and I'm going to circle back through here in just a second and make sure that we have everybody, because some of the late runners are getting the unmuting taken care of there. So, okay, go ahead, fire away with questions that you have.
If my spouse is not working, does that mean that she cannot get any coverage?
No, she'd be able to get a minimal amount of coverage as a spouse, but you wouldn't be able to swing for the fences and go for 250. You could probably easily get away with 50 or 100. A lot of that depends. Remember, your mortgage balance is also in play. All right, you've got kids. You know, depending on the situation, they've got kids or whatever it is that they've got. But you know, you make your best case. I would certainly not apply for a $250,000 benefit in that case. So, other questions? That was a good one. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, I'm in a situation where, we have a lot of assets, and I do not qualify for long. But my husband wants me to be covered for critical illness.
Okay.
And so, based on, and I'm a new agent, so I don't understand. But I'm wondering, what process do I take to, take a look at this, this product to see that it will, what do you want me to go through to take a look at it to see if I qualify?
Well, I mean, to see if you qualify, the simplest thing to do is submit an application. I mean, the first question would be, based on the scenario you presented a moment ago, why is it that you don't qualify for long-term care?
I have had health issues that will not qualify me for long-term care.
Okay. Well, probably the best thing to do would be to cover this. I mean, we would want to take a look at it. The first thing you're going to do is look at the knockout questions, and then I would certainly be glad to take information, speak with an underwriter without getting into too much detail. But at the end of the day, that's all sort of commentary-based until they actually see the medical records. But the simplest thing to do would be just to submit an application. Let your doctor know that you've submitted one so that they will respond, and this is becoming a bit of an issue across the board, but so that they'll respond with some expediency on getting those records in, and then we'll see whether the carrier can make an offer or not.
Okay, so as a new agent, I'm the privacy issues. So how does that affect privacy?
Well, you're protected by HIPAA, so I'm not sure what you're asking about with regard to privacy. I mean, any information that you would share with me as part of that process is protected, just like doctor-patient or lawyer-client confidentiality. I don't talk to anybody else about it other than the underwriters. Okay, and the underwriters are bound by HIPAA along the way, so your information is protected within that particular framework.
Okay, so if you're declined by one carrier, and then, how does it affect going to another?
Well, most of the time, the knowledge of decline by Company A while submitting to Company C comes about as a result of the health interview. If it was a situation, it's not necessarily going to be reported to some central authority, if you want to call it that. But the carriers do, more and more of them are gravitating toward the MIB model. At the end of the day, there's a likelihood that that information is going to become, I wouldn't call it public knowledge, but within the insurance framework, there's a good possibility that it might be. Again, the carriers all are members of MIB because they're gravitating more towards that model because it's less expensive.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Any other questions? Go ahead. And again, I believe that was Cheryl. I would encourage you strongly to submit an app, or again, give me a call offline. We can get in front of one of the underwriters and get a little bit better idea. But at the end of the day, the application and the information that comes in at that point in time, that's what they make the final decision based on.
Okay. I appreciate your input. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else?
Shall I sing my question?
Sure. You can even sing off key.
Well, when I was in high school and it was mandatory chorus, everybody would elbow me and say, "Mouth it, Sheila."
Okay.
So I'll just verbally say it.
All right.
Issue ages, the issue age range, and also the last slide that you showed said at 65 your premium is reduced.
No, the premium isn't reduced. The benefit's reduced. Issue age is 18 to 64.
18 to 64,
Yeah.
and at 65 the benefit is reduced.
Yes, this is very much of a traditional defined benefit critical illness policy. This is how they were all built for a long time. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so the unfortunate reality, if you want to say that, is that this is our not only our best option in New York, it's our only option in New York because of brick and mortar. I suggested to Mr. Cutler and Mr. Bree that we have a building party in Gene's side yard and put together a shed with a street number on it and call it the headquarters for Guarantee Trust Life, but apparently that's not going to be sufficient. So given the domicile rule there, our options in New York are very, very limited.
Okay. So the benefit is reduced by what percentage?
50%.
50%. The premium remains the same.
Yes.
And if you use get a 25% benefit, then the remaining 75% is there, and your premium is reduced by 25%.
No, the premium stays the same along the way, but you have access. You have access to the remaining benefits. So if you have cancer in situ, out of a $200,000 policy, you're going to get a check for 50, with the remaining 150 staying there, so that if they were diagnosed with a kidney issue or Alzheimer's down the road, they would have that benefit available to them.
Could you put up that last slide again, please?
Sure. Hang on for just a second here. Go to slide previous. Oh, skipped one. For some. Hold on here. Oh, you're right. It is 25% premium reduction. You are correct.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Good catch,
Right.
Sheila. I'll let you do the next webinar. You got this down.
Okay, so
it is a 25% reduction in premium.
Okay.
I'm just used to it not being that way, so just kind of my brain there. So good catch.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right. You bet.
Hey, Mike, my golf cart is frozen, so I thought I'd ask a question. I'd step off and ask you a question.
I appreciate you jumping in, Jim. Thank you. We'll send, I think AAA will work on the golf course. We'll get it out there for you.
It's cold here. Hey, the only experience I have with critical illness is, you know, from a lot of friends of mine and colleagues who've been promoting the Aflac product. So can you just sort of an overview, how does this stack up against their product in New York? Do you have any idea?
Well, the product in New York is largely the same as what it is in other places. Aflac predominantly is a small benefit worksite based $6 a month monthly premium.
Correct.
Product.
That's right. It is right.
So, you know, the mutual product, it's not. I mean, it can be used in the worksite, but it's not designed as a worksite add-on type thing. Okay, right. It's got a little more heft to it, as you can see when you got benefits going over 100 or over 250 in terms of that. So, it really, this is more of a living room or a kitchen table type of product than what Aflac is. Aflac, I mean, we have the Aflac folks come to our office every year and run through the lineup of everything that they've got, and you know, for reasons that most of you would understand, our folks here elected to go with the GTL product. You know, we feel like it did a better job. So that doesn't pertain to New York. I don't know about a premium comparison, but in terms of benefits and such, they're on par with each other. I believe Mutual goes a little higher than what Aflac typically does. It's just this is not one that folks are parading through an endless series of worksite opportunities, running this through a lineup that includes accident and all these different other kinds of things along the way.
Right. Yeah, I think your description of Aflac is largely, you know, sort of low premium, comes out of your paycheck once a week or once, you know, every other week is a really good description. And that's, from my experience, that's how it's been largely positioned here in New York.
With a $10,000 benefit, it's low ease of use, low handling, but it's also low benefit.
So this is conceivably somebody who's you know, a 40, 50-year-old, maybe a little bit more income, concerned about the potential impact from a cash perspective, or the ability to have cash on hand if something unforeseen or unfortunate were to happen to that person.
Absolutely. One of the things that and I'm glad you phrased it that way because it's a perfect transition to something I wanted to talk about. One of the things that we have told our folks, you and other folks that we work with in the regular brokerage situation, is that critical illness conceptually is the perfect complement and supplement to all of the things that you do. Now,
that's what I was thinking, right?
Yeah, it's not, as they get older, you know, on the sales piece of it, if they're over 64, I'm sorry, but that's, you know, there's nothing we can do about that. But if you're talking to a 58-year-old husband and wife, this is something that I think you want to talk to them about, and I'll give you an example as to why. And this is a real-life desk was 15 feet from my desk example. We had an IT guy in our office. Some of you probably heard this story, who basically from December of 11 to December of 13 battled pancreatic cancer. Still with us. He took a medical retirement. Every Monday morning, he would drive 300 miles round trip to Seattle to take part in an experimental treatment protocol at one of the world-class treatment centers that we have relatively close to us. Now, our health insurance, which is very good, took care of all of the primary expenses, if you will. But the lost time from work and the gas and the meals and the mileage and all those kinds of things, those were all out-of-pocket expenses. Now imagine how much difference a $50,000 critical illness policy would have meant to that gentleman, whose name happens also to be Mike. I do know he's a pretty private guy, but I know he had to sell his house to pay for some of the ancillary costs, if you will, and I'm sure there's more to it than that. The average monthly out-of-pocket expense for someone who is being treated on an ongoing basis for cancer is almost $1,300 a month. Okay, 2 years of that, and you're looking at $30,000. Okay, so perfect complement and supplement. And if you are talking to 68-year-old Bob and Frida Lou, whoever, ask them, do you know anybody? Who do you know Okay, this, and then is there anybody that I might be able to help with a product like this? I know that we can't do anything to help you out, but what about your kids? What about your son and his wife, the daughter-in-law, whatever? But just use this to pick up referrals along the way. Most of the folks that you work with on long-term care, they've got other people that are in their universe, and you can help those other people with this potentially as well as with long-term care. That's complementing the things that you're doing. It also potentially could supplement it when you're working with folks in the younger space, the 52s and 56-year-olds. So enough of that stump speech. Other questions out there?
It seems to me that
your height and weight chart was quite a bit different from long-term care, rather more restrictive for critical illness. Is that the case?
I haven't really looked at it head-to-head, so I couldn't tell you. I wouldn't be surprised. It's pretty well known that Mutual's height-weight chart for long-term care is one of the more liberal ones out there. But in terms of how they stack up against each other, couldn't tell you. So, looked like we had another question coming in right on the heels of that. So go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this as comparing it to an income disability policy. Seems like that's the real comparison, because if I'm not working, I can't get much coverage under this policy. And if I'm not working because I'm retired, I'm losing benefit under this policy, and I'm paying more, and my premium is still fairly high. So when I need it most, I'm not going to be able to get it, which is typical income disability policy.
Yeah, I mean, there are some similarities, if you will, but at the end of the day, you make a lineup of opportunities available for folks. The one that seems to get I don't want to say slighted, but gets the least exposure on a typical day-to-day basis is disability income out there. This will do a lot of the things that DI will do, but the advantage is, particularly when you have somebody who's self-employed, if the guy's showing $40,000, he could pick up $200,000 in critical illness. He's only going to pick up $40,000, or actually less than that, of DI. The critical illness could replace income and cover medical expenses at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
If someone is on disability, for example, there are several kinds of disability. There's a veteran's disability, there's police and fire department, which sometimes are a little bit different, and then there's Social Security disability. So how would they be evaluated?
Well, SSDI for the most part is considered total disability. Those folks wouldn't pass muster. The others, we would probably look at them on a case-by-case basis. I do know, as you very well know, Sheila, that almost everybody coming out of the military is picking up some sort of a disability, but you could have a guy with a 30% disability because of a hearing loss. That's not going to, have any effect on what we're doing here. So those you would take on a case-by-case basis.
Good. Thank
okay?
You.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll wrap things up here in just a minute. I will make a copy of the slides and get those out to Ms. Tracy. She's also got the agent guide, the application for New York, and the brochure and the rates all already on an email that she can fire all that stuff out to folks. As always, we are available. I am available here at AIM to answer more questions that you might have along the way with regard to this. If you have case specifics, and they are really just like long-term care, these are very much case-by-case scenarios. If we have those along the way, give me a call. Let's take a look at them. My office hours most of the time are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The exception there is Monday, when I'm here from 9 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. So one more pass for questions. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and shut everything down. So any other questions?
What number to call you, Mike?
800-672-7202. And I'm at extension 129. Okay, anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
You-
Mike.
You're all very
Tracy.
welcome.
If you need that email, if you need some of those materials, just shoot me an email and I'll fire them back to you. I will also get them posted, but until they're posted, you can get them from me via email. So just let me know.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Mike.
You bet. Love it when a plan comes together, folks. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.